We live long and prosper, Mike. Or do we record long and prosper?
I don't know. We do something and prosper.
A modern podcast where Chris and Mike talk about TV, movies, superheroes, and everything in between. It's time for Superhero Slate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this is a spoiler cast for Star Trek Beyond, the third film in the franchise reboot, but the 13th film overall.
Yeah, lots of Star Trek.
Yes, lots of Star Trek. So there are spoilers in the spoiler cast, duh, so don't be surprised if we ruin it for you. But we did go see, this is more of a surprise spoiler cast for us. We didn't expect to do this.
This was a little impromptu. We kind of have planned to do a spoiler cast at the end of the summer and kind of wrap up and talk about, movies that fell through the cracks, movies we didn't get a chance to see. And this was going to be one of them. I was just going to kind of loop that into everything else there, but we actually had a chance to go see this. You had always planned on seeing it opening weekend, but I didn't know if I was going to have time. But actually some of the buzz I heard about the movie got me a little excited. So, I was like, I'll make some time. So I made some time early this morning to go see the first showing of the movie. So yeah, this is unplanned. So this is kind of a bonus spoiler cast, if you will.
We had no notes on this. I mean, it had to have been almost midnight my time when you texted me and said, let's do a spoiler cast on this. I just bought tickets. I'm like, all right. And I'm planning on going last night, but we got home late from a wedding reception. So I was like, all right, I'll go see it tomorrow afternoon and go to the recliner theater, right?
Yeah.
Try it out. Well, then we woke up and my wife is, under the weather from I guess allergies or something. So we didn't get to go do that. So I just went on by myself to watch it and then left her at home medicated. So I got to go watch this by myself. And this week I've rewatched the other Star Trek movies. Star Trek and Into Darkness this week. One a night, kind of prepping myself for this movie because I'm like, I really like the first one. Maybe I need to give the second one a second chance. And then to get ready for the third one, because again, the same way, I've heard good things about this movie. Like Star Trek Beyond, heard good things, and I kind of agree with them. Like I think it's a good movie.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to hear. We talked a little bit in our normal weekly episode of Superhero Slate about the movie at the top, and I said there was a little bit riding on this movie. I felt like it was already confirmed that we were going to get a fourth before the movie came out, but obviously some people had a chance to see it already. But I felt like this could possibly have been the last Star Trek movie after we saw the second one. I was like, okay, they're going to do a third one, maybe do a classic trilogy, just 3 movies and wrap it up. But this movie, I guess, has really reinvigorated the characters in the franchise.
I agree. I think though. I mean, I do not like that Into Darkness is a remake of Wrath of Khan. And like I said in the original episode that we did this week, I like that the first one and this one are original stories. They are totally new. They're not retreading anything. And I definitely enjoy this. However, I don't think it's the best one. I think the first one's still the best one. It captures the magic and the energy and the mystique, I guess, of Star Trek and exploration and space. So I don't know if you noticed this, but this movie felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy parallel. Like there's a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy elements there, and I noticed that when I watched the Earth, or not the Earth, but the planetoid they went to, the refueling station, looked a lot like Xandar.
Yeah, I mean, I could see maybe the similarities within the plot a little bit with the bad guy trying to destroy like the pristine planet, but I definitely didn't get any Guardians of the Galaxy like spirit in this movie at all.
Well, visually and even like a little story wise to me, it felt the same because like that spaceship with like all the ships are like. I guess not all the ships, but all the buildings are pointed towards the gravity thing in the center. Like that looked like Xandar, where you meet Rocket and Groot and Stan Lee for the first time. Mm-hmm. Like all that, the physical makeup of the characters. Again, that's Star Trek, but that felt like Xandar to me. This overly religious, or not religious, but like fanatic, trying to take down the police, I guess, of the galaxy kind of thing. I don't know. It just, but with like a an ability to destroy whole worlds. It just felt too similar to me, but I don't fault it for this at all. Like, I think Beyond was a fantastic experience. All the characters got pretty equal story time there. I feel like they each got their own like little points. But I also find it ironic that the bridge crew is the one who gets to do all the fun stuff the whole time. Like, you don't meet any ancillary characters other than Jayla throughout the movie. So, but I mean, again, I think one of the wasted points about this movie is Idris Elba as the villain. You can't tell who he is. And he doesn't really... I don't think he acted that well. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, I mean, overall, when it comes to this film, I felt like it was a really solid B. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is a really, really great an A." I would give it a solid... I would give it a solid B. It's definitely not a bad movie at all. It definitely felt like a movie that there wasn't really a whole lot of stakes going on. Obviously, yes, there were stakes that millions of people could die on this space station that they were building. But I felt like there wasn't a whole lot going on within the Star Trek mythos, which is one reason why I really, really liked the first Star Trek movie. And it's actually one thing that I kind of liked about the second Star Trek movie. There was a lot of stuff going on with Starfleet specifically, and Kirk moving up through the ranks, and Earth being a focal point in both movies at one point in time. And they did some really unique things in the first movie with time travel that really put the whole Star Trek franchise spun it on its head, and I thought that was really, really great. This movie kind of feels almost kind of like a filler movie, kind of like a movie within a long string that doesn't really affect things too much. Yeah, we got a little bit more of Kirk developing of the type of captain and person that he wants to be in the future, but I felt like beyond that, not a whole lot happened. You know, we are very detached from the Earth, from the planet, because we were very far away. This is a brand new built station, so we kind of have to anchor ourselves around that now. And yeah, I felt like I was never really too worried about that. You know, Starfleet seems to be totally on board with Kirk now. He seems like he can kind of write his own check. You know, they offered him that position of basically admiral of this whole space station, and they were totally on board with it. So it was kind of hard for me to get really attached to the story that way. And also, picking up where you left off, talking about Idris Elba as the villain, he was really, really weak just as a villain in general. It seems like in this film they were like, okay, we need an alien race out there that can just do things and we don't have to explain it. We never really got a clear, concrete description of why a Starfleet captain could crash land on this planet, and he kind of says it was abandoned, but then he said no, there was workers left there. But then
how did he get the ability to absorb other people and take on their looks?
Yeah, exactly. And then it kind of turned him into an alien that kind of already looks like the other aliens on the planet, or actually were all of his crewmates are actually the aliens that we saw, but that the numbers don't work out. There had to be other aliens from somewhere else. But then there's also just those normal people on the planet. It was just, I have no idea. I can't explain any of that, and they didn't really explain it very well either. But basically, we just got the gist of, oh, aliens, they can do things. We don't need to explain it. And then I didn't really enjoy how the plot really evolved around this artifact that was never really explained. Since it was stated that it was a small piece for a bigger weapon, I was expecting this weapon to really build up to be something really fantastic. You know, something that could not necessarily destroy planets, but I was expecting it to do something really magical, something really different and unique, and really surprise me. But it just ends up being something that turns people to dust and sucks them in. It wasn't really clear. So when at the very end his plan was to use that to destroy all the life on that ship, I didn't really understand how that was going to work. Yeah, the villain is definitely the weakest part of the movie. If they could have actually, the more I think about it now, the more and more I'm really not liking it. So, so maybe it's not going to hold up too well on a second rewatch, but I felt like if they could have somehow made that stronger, it could have been a much better film.
Yeah, again, this is where it feels just like Guardians of the Galaxy to me, and I don't fault it for that. I think it's okay, but the villain is the weakest part. I think this should have been the second movie. This should have been the follow-up to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
because they're in like the middle or the latter half of their 5-year journey, and that should have been it. And then the third movie is the end of that journey. Where does their 5-year journey take them? What has changed on Earth in that time? You know, maybe they meet something along the way who then is trying to rush back to Earth, and they have to find a way back. I don't know, but like, I do not like Into Darkness, and I will say that every day if I have to. I know a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinions on films, but I think this should have been the next movie, and Into Darkness just, you know, tabled. And then the next movie, which, again, I feel the same. There were no stakes on the table because they'd already announced the fourth movie. So you're like, okay, everyone's going to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if not, I mean, they have magic blood to bring them back from Into Darkness. Like, no one can really die in this anymore.
Yeah, and it is kind of strange in the atmosphere of summer blockbusters that we're in, where we regularly see literally planets get destroyed. I mean, in The Force Awakens, we saw many planets just get blown up by that big giant Death Star, and they kind of, I felt like, glazed over that a little bit in The Force Awakens. So yeah, I was definitely just like, okay, there's a good chance that this whole space station could just get annihilated. That could happen. So it was never really something I was too worried about. I was kind of prepared for it to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. I agree with you. It's not perfect. It's not the best one, but it's not bad. It's not horrible. I'm not offended, if you will, by this movie, because I'm like, okay, this is great. This is new stuff. It's great to learn. I mean, Scotty took a bigger role in it, mostly because the actor Simon Pegg wrote most of this movie as well. Seeing some of their technology was cool. Seeing them drive that old spaceship out that we had no idea, because we're not Star Trek people, what kind of spaceship that was. Fly that out was kind of interesting.
It was really great seeing Justin Lin adapt this movie. Not adapt, maybe the wrong word, but last time we saw him out and about, it was with the Fast and the Furious movies, and I was really confused. Like, are we going to be getting more of that? Is he going to lend himself well to a science fiction world? But I thought he did a really, really great job. I think maybe some of the problems with the movie are more in the script, which is kind of hard to say because I really love Simon Pegg. So hopefully maybe that wasn't on his end since he co-wrote it. But yeah, I thought he did a great job. He put the camera in some really cool places. I believe you said that.
That's something I have to applaud this film for. He did give us some of the best visuals I've seen in a sci-fi film. Attaching it to like the dirt bikes and stuff like that, the ship flying around, the way it moves around the ship and all their action scenes. It's just the way the camera moves and the angles it looks at. You just don't see that hardly anymore. It was very artsy and kind of dangerous even for a blockbuster film to do. And I think that really helped make it feel more science fiction than it did. And
I think that's one thing that we can really commend the Star Trek trilogy now with. And even if people that didn't like Into Darkness that much, they did some really cool things with the warp drive in that movie that I thought looked really, really fantastic. So these movies always look really, really good, whether you are hot or cold on them either way. So I really enjoyed that. The characters are back in full force, and they're funny, they're charismatic, so I love that we have that again.
The lack of lens flares was definitely noticeable as well, because again, rewatching Into Darkness, there are lens flares on almost every important shot in that film.
JJ,
right across
baby.
The face.
JJ, baby.
Yeah, he definitely used milk those dry. But the last thing I kind of want to knock this film is the CGI just didn't live up to a Star Trek movie.
I thought it looked good to me.
So two things I noticed: the aliens, whenever they're wearing the green armored suits, are pretty weak. They obviously they float around a little bit more than they should. Like, they don't feel pressed up against like the background like everything else is. Like they pop a little too much. But mostly the dirt bike scene when he's driving the dirt bike with Jayla into the prison camp, where it's obviously a fake dirt bike.
Yeah, there were some parts. I think when they established the dirt bike going over the hill for the first time. Yeah, I definitely saw that. But one thing, if we go into the environments like that, one thing that I really enjoyed was seeing kind of this rocky outcropping, because it kind of felt like an old classic Star Trek TV show. They did that a lot in the old show. They're like, oh, we're just gonna drive out to the desert and shoot something and just say it's an alien planet. So I kind of got that vibe there. So I thought that was kind of cool. But also bringing up, they actually say, I think, the word episodic a couple times in the movie, and I think they're kind of leaning into that a little bit.
Yeah, they're kind of making fun of themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, at the beginning, it was like, oh, this whole journey in space is very episodic, and you're like, oh, I get it, like the TV show was, because they had episodes. But yeah, I mean, when the CG was CG by itself, like CG on CG, like the starships flying into like the other ships, I didn't have a problem with it. By the way, it was just whenever it was real mixed with CG, I could tell. Like that's whenever I complained. Overall, I'm excited for the next one. I thought I would have Star Trek. I guess what's the word when you've had too much of something? Oversaturation.
Too full.
Yeah, a little full on Star Trek, but I'm not. I think this rejuvenated my energy for it as well. In the fourth one with Chris Hemsworth coming back, hopefully J.J. Abrams isn't directing it, and we can enjoy that. So, have you heard of the Star Trek rule for the films, like the even number?
I mean, I'm vaguely familiar with it, but I'm not really sure.
Okay, so it essentially means that the even number Star Trek films are superior to the odd number Star Trek films.
Okay, so, but is that going to work with our new franchise?
Well, see, so this holds up until the new franchise. So if you look at how they kind of hold up in terms of score, Star Trek, the first movie, it's okay. The average rating on it's like a 5.9. But then if you go to the second one, Wrath of Khan, it's a 7.6, like one of the highest rating ones.
Gotcha.
3 is A Search for Spock, which drops back down to a 6. And then the fourth one, The Voyage Home, was back up to a 7.2. So everything is going on like that until it gets to number 10, which was Nemesis, which was like had Tom Hardy in it as a clone of Captain Picard, and this was in 2002, and it totally messed up. But 9, or I guess not 9, but number 11, the 11, the reboot starts it over again.
Okay.
So now it's the new trilogy is pretty much every other film.
Yeah, I mean,
is the good one.
I guess we'll have to see if that pans out. I hope not, because that means the next Star Trek movie we get won't be good, and I want it to be good.
Yeah, I want it to be good, but I mean, I just think it was funny that I liked the first one. I didn't care for Into Darkness, but then I like this one again. I'm like, this feels very familiar, like the Star Trek curse of sorts. But I just wanted to point that out. I thought it was funny. Easter eggs in this movie, the only thing I can think of is Greg Grunberg is the commander at the space station that they're at. He's in Star Trek, or Star Wars, The Force Awakens, as a gunship pilot. He's in all of J.J. Abrams stuff. He was in the show Heroes. I think he was in Lost, maybe even. So that guy is like everywhere J.J. Abrams goes.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff. This movie felt like an Easter egg movie for people that love Star Trek. You know, sometimes you're watching a movie and you're looking at something and you're like, I'm looking at an Easter egg. I can tell right now, but I don't know enough about the subject matter at hand. And I felt like, especially when you go into that old USS Franklin ship, I'm sure there is tons of Easter eggs in there about, you know, the older series of Star Trek that totally went over my head. So I'm sure some people really enjoy that.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. And lastly, I just want to point out the Beastie Boys Sabotage, when it came on, was actually one of the coolest sequences in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely harkens back to Beastie Boys being in every Star Trek movie. And also Beastie Boys, this was the Sabotage, the same song that was at the very beginning of the first movie. And I thought that was really cool because I'm on board with any time that you get to use millions of dollars worth of special effects tied into Beastie Boys. So I love Beastie Boys. They hold a special little place in my heart. So that was a really amazing part of the movie.
It was. That was one of those moments where you're like, fuck yeah, like the good guys are getting them, and like they're smoking their asses riding this exploding wave of ships through space. Like that was a good sequence, and I just have to applaud them for that, because we laughed at the trailer when they played it, because we're like, every movie trailer has Beastie Boys in it, and it actually came to be something useful. So.
And you can kind of see the gears start turning before that scene happens, where like, oh, we need to disturb them. We need some sort of audio disturbance, something at a different frequency that they're not used to. And I lean over to my wife and be like, they're gonna play music right now, and then they did, and it was really great.
It's awesome. Yeah, I agree. But other than that, I think I give the movie, a good 5 out of 7. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's a B. I agree with you. It's a B movie. rating. So, I mean...
Yeah, I think people were just more surprised than anything else that it kind of recovered from Into Darkness and ended up being something more exceptional than they thought it would be. I'll just reiterate, I thought the biggest problems with the movie were the very poorly explained villain and where he came from. But honestly, at the same time, a lot of summer blockbuster movies have problems with the villains and explaining them and their motivations. So it's a little easier to look over that. But also, I felt like this movie didn't really affect the Star Trek franchise that much. We saw a little bit more character development with Kirk and maybe a little bit with Spock, but basically everybody else kind of remained stationary as crew members. Not much growth there, not a whole lot affected Starfleet. They pretty much seemed like...
They rebuilt their ship, like...
Yeah.
They didn't even lose the ship permanently. Like, they rebuilt the ship.
Yeah, the ship's back to normal. Not a whole lot of damage happened to that really crazy space station built out in the middle of nowhere. So it seems like not a whole lot was affected. That's why this kind of just seems more like a pit stop along the road. Not a whole lot happened. And actually, I was going to bring up this point before we cut out of here, that I think that kind of just goes to show you the difference between Star Trek, the movies, and Star Trek, the TV shows. You know, when you have an episodic TV show, these stories make more sense. You have these little independent stories that just slowly and gradually change things just little by little over an arc of a whole season, where it almost kind of felt like I watched one episode when I watched this and I didn't really get a full arc. So I think maybe, you know, some people have complained a little bit in the past about the Star Trek movies maybe being more fantastical. It feels more like Star Wars, less like Star Trek. There's more action and battles in it when there should be more science and exploring. And I do believe that, but I think that leans better more with TV than it does with movies. So I think they have to strike a balance. And I feel like the balance is a little off with this. I hope with the next movie, leading up to it, you know, we said Chris Hemsworth is coming back as his father. I would assume it's going to be more than just a flashback. You know, maybe we're going to go back into the time travel aspect. I really love that when they tweak with the entire universe, literally the universe, not the universe of Star Trek, but the universe as in the foreseeable galaxies and everything in front of them. So I like it when the stakes are a little bit bigger. And I do believe that was kind of the whole point of Star Trek movies to begin with, was to up the stakes, up the budget. So I'm hoping they do that with the next movie. But this was a solid return. And
it's a good summer movie.
Yeah, it's a good summer movie. It's a solid return. It's not going to offend. It's not going to offend you as Chris might say. But it's a pleasant surprise.
It is good. It is good, and you know, and I think that's probably why again we wanted to do the spoiler cast, is because it was better than we expected, and we wanted to tell you that. Next weekend, I'm actually looking forward to Jason Bourne, so I'm going to be watching the Bourne movies this week, one at a time. And then we have Suicide Squad, so I don't think we'll do a Jason Bourne spoiler cast unless, you know, we surprise spoiler cast that again, like we always do. But Suicide Squad is our next tentative spoiler cast.
Yeah, that'll be a big event for us.
Yes, definitely. In the meantime, Mike, if people want to find what you're up to and all your San Diego Comic-Con exclusive knowledge that you were dropping, where can they do that at?
Well, they can follow me over at Mike Royer Design on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to read my webcomic, you can check that out at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if they want to get the nitty-gritty and the lowdown and maybe some live tweeting of the Jason Bourne movies, where can they follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Valdan, Valdan. I'm really looking forward to Jason Bourne, actually. I've been playing the theme song every time I shower, so really stoked on that. And then you can find me on comicui.com as well. If people want to find more of our regular shows, not just our spoiler cast, and maybe more of our spoiler cast, I don't know. This is our 14th one. Where can they find it at? Well,
they can find that over at superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the outlets we store and stash and distribute the show. We're over on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Tumblr. You can subscribe to us and get us right in your email inbox. You can like us on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. If you're a fan of the show, please consider heading on over to iTunes, leaving us a review. It's super helpful for us, and we love that. And I think you can do that on Stitcher too, maybe even Google Play. Review us wherever you can. That's really awesome. And if you're a super fan of the show, just share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy. If you also thought Idris Elba's plan was really confusing and didn't really understand where he got his powers, and your friend thinks differently, maybe link him to this podcast, and you can feel a little bit more empowered.
Yeah, totally. I mean, It's great. I mean, enjoy your Star Trek and your Idris Elba and your movies. And if you can figure out what the villain's powers are, if that's another Star Trek show, please let us know. I still want to know what he was doing, other than just absorbing people. So.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I guess we'll see you guys on our regular scheduled programming next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.